Marcus Chen had always been a light sleeper, but tonight felt different. The apartment was too quiet, even for Manhattan at 3 in the morning. No sirens, no car horns, not even the usual hum of the air conditioning unit that usually kept him awake. He lay on his back, staring at the ceiling where shadows danced in patterns that seemed almost deliberate. The software engineer rubbed his tired eyes and checked his phone. The screen showed 3:17 a.m., but something was wrong with the display. The numbers flickered between normal digits and strange symbols he had never seen before. Marcus blinked hard, assuming his exhaustion was playing tricks on him. He had been working 18-hour days for the past month, debugging code for his startup's new artificial intelligence platform. A soft humming filled the room, so low he felt it more than heard it. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Marcus sat up in bed, his heart rate quickening. The humming grew stronger, and the air around him began to shimmer like heat waves rising from summer pavement. "What the hell?" Marcus whispered, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. The temperature in the room dropped suddenly, and his breath became visible in small puffs of vapor. Ice crystals began forming on his bedroom window, spreading outward in geometric patterns that looked too perfect to be natural. The humming evolved into something more complex, almost musical, with harmonies that seemed to resonate inside his skull. Marcus grabbed his robe and stepped toward the window. The view of the city below had changed. Instead of the familiar lights of downtown Manhattan, he saw swirling clouds of purple and gold energy stretching across the horizon. Ships, if that's what they were, moved through the sky like glowing jellyfish, their forms shifting and pulsing with bioluminescent light. "This isn't real," Marcus said aloud, pinching himself hard enough to leave marks. "I'm dreaming. Too much caffeine and too little sleep." The window began to dissolve, not breaking or melting, but simply ceasing to exist one molecule at a time. The purple energy from outside flowed into his room like liquid light, surrounding him in warmth despite the cold air. Marcus tried to run, but his feet wouldn't move. His body felt heavy, as if gravity had suddenly tripled. Through the dissolving wall stepped a figure that made Marcus question everything he thought he knew about the universe. She was tall, perhaps 7 feet, with skin that seemed to be made of starlight itself. Her features were humanoid but refined beyond human possibility, with large eyes that held the depth of nebulae and hair that moved like solar wind. She wore what appeared to be armor made from crystallized space, reflecting colors that had no names. "Do not fear, Marcus Chen of Earth," her voice echoed inside his mind rather than his ears. "I am Zarathes, Empress of the Void Dominion. I have traveled across 17 galaxies to find you." Marcus tried to speak but found his voice had abandoned him. The entity before him radiated power that made the hair on his arms stand up, yet there was something oddly comforting about her presence. "You wonder why," she continued, moving closer with steps that seemed to bend space around her feet. "Your species fascinates my people. Humans possess something we have lost over our millions of years of evolution. Something precious." She raised her hand, and Marcus felt a tingling sensation in his chest, as if something was stirring to life inside him. "Your capacity for what you call emotions, for irrational hope, for love despite logic. These things create energy patterns we can no longer produce ourselves." Marcus finally found his voice. "You're talking about feelings? You traveled across space for feelings?" Zarathes smiled, and her expression transformed her alien features into something almost familiar. "Not just any feelings, Marcus. Your feelings. For 3 Earth months, we have monitored your dreams, your thoughts, your daily experiences. You possess an unusually strong emotional resonance. Your soul burns brighter than most of your kind." The purple energy swirled around Marcus, lifting him gently off the floor. He should have been terrified, but instead felt strangely calm. The Empress moved her hand in complex patterns, and streams of light flowed from her fingertips to dance around his body. "My empire spans 1,000 worlds," she explained, "but we are dying, Marcus. Not in body, but in spirit. We have become too perfect, too logical, too cold. We have forgotten how to truly live. Our scientists discovered that by forming a connection with a human soul, we can remember what we have lost. Marcus felt the light entering his body through his skin, flowing through his bloodstream like warm honey. Connection? What kind of connection? A symbiosis, Zarathus replied, her mental voice taking on an almost gentle tone. I will not take your soul, Marcus. I will share it. You will retain your humanity, your independence, your free will. But I will experience life through your emotions, learn from your capacity for wonder and joy and even pain. The sensation was indescribable. Marcus felt his consciousness expanding, touching something vast and ancient and wise. For a moment, he experienced what it was like to think on a galactic scale, to remember the birth and death of stars, to feel the loneliness of ruling an empire of beings who had forgotten how to laugh. Why me? Marcus asked, though he was beginning to understand. Because you still dream, the Empress replied. Because you still believe that impossible things can happen. Because when you code, you imagine you are creating new forms of life. Because you see beauty in mathematics and poetry in algorithms. Because you are lonely, like I am lonely, but you have not let that loneliness turn you cold. The purple energy began to settle into Marcus's body, becoming part of him without overwhelming him. He could feel Zarathus's presence in his mind, like a second heartbeat, but she kept her promise. His thoughts remained his own. What happens now? Marcus asked. Now, we learn from each other, she replied. I will return to my ship, but our connection will remain. You will continue your life, but you will no longer be alone. When you dream, I will dream with you. When you feel joy, I will remember what joy means. When you love, I will understand why love is worth all the pain it brings. Marcus felt a shift in reality, and his apartment began to return to normal. The window reformed, the temperature rose, and the city lights reappeared outside. But everything was different now. Colors seemed more vivid, sounds more musical, even the air felt more alive. Zarathus began to fade, becoming translucent like a ghost made of starlight. I must go, but I am always with you now. Sleep, Marcus Chen. Dream beautiful dreams. Through you, my entire empire will remember what it means to be alive. As the Empress disappeared completely, Marcus felt an overwhelming sense of purpose settle over him. He was no longer just a software engineer working late nights in a Manhattan apartment. He was a bridge between worlds, a teacher for an ancient civilization, a keeper of humanity's greatest gift. Marcus climbed back into bed, his mind racing with possibilities. Tomorrow, he would wake up and go to work and write code and live his normal human life. But tonight, and every night after, he would dream for two souls instead of one. He would feel twice as deeply, love twice as strongly, and hope twice as fiercely. As sleep finally took him, Marcus smiled. For the first time in years, he was not slumbering alone. Somewhere among the stars, an Empress was learning what it meant to be human, one heartbeat at a time. Marcus woke to his alarm at 7 a.m., but something had fundamentally changed. The world looked different through his eyes, as if someone had adjusted the contrast and saturation of reality itself. The morning sunlight streaming through his bedroom window didn't just illuminate the room, it seemed to sing. He could feel Zarathus's presence in his mind, a warm consciousness that observed without interfering. Good morning, her mental voice whispered as he sat up in bed. I am experiencing your morning ritual through your senses. The warmth of sunlight on skin is remarkable. My people have not felt such simple pleasures in millennia. Marcus rubbed his eyes, still adjusting to having a cosmic roommate in his head. This is going to take some getting used to. Can my coworkers hear you too? No, our connection is unique to you alone. I can observe your world through your experiences, but I cannot interact with others directly. You remain in complete control, Marcus Chen. As Marcus prepared for work, he noticed how differently he perceived everything. The smell of coffee wasn't just pleasant, it was a symphony of aromas that told a story of rain on distant mountains and sunshine on ancient plants. When he stepped outside, the chaos of New York City traffic became a complex dance of human purpose and determination rather than just noise and confusion. At his office building downtown, Marcus felt Zarathus react with fascination to the elevator ride. Your species creates these vertical transportation devices, she observed. Yet you use the journey time for solitary contemplation rather than conversation with strangers. Fascinating social protocols. Marcus almost laughed out loud but caught himself. His co-workers would think he had lost his mind if he started talking to thin air. We're not great with strangers in small spaces, he explained mentally. Personal space is important to humans. Space, Zarathus mused. We who travel between stars fear the space between minds more than the space between worlds. The observation hit Marcus harder than he expected. He had always been lonely, even in crowded rooms, even surrounded by colleagues and acquaintances. But now he felt truly connected to another consciousness for the first time in his life. His workday began normally enough, but Marcus soon discovered that having an alien empress experiencing life through his senses created unexpected challenges. When his project manager, Sarah, stopped by his desk to discuss the AI platform updates, Marcus found himself unusually aware of her expressions, her tone of voice, the subtle stress signals in her body language. She carries great responsibility, Zarathus observed. Her electromagnetic field shows patterns of chronic anxiety. She fears failure more than she hopes for success. Marcus had worked with Sarah for 2 years but had never noticed these things before. Through Zarathus's perspective, he began to see his co-workers as complete beings rather than just professional contacts. Tom from accounting wasn't just awkward in meetings, he was deeply passionate about numbers in a way that bordered on artistic. Lisa from marketing wasn't just aggressive with deadlines, she was fighting to prove herself in a field that questioned her expertise daily. Your species is so complex, Zarathus said as Marcus worked on debugging code. Each individual carries entire universes of experience and emotion. We had forgotten that intelligence could be so beautifully chaotic. The code Marcus was writing seemed to flow differently now. Where before he had focused purely on function and efficiency, he found himself considering the elegance of algorithms, the poetry hidden in logical structures. His productivity actually improved as he began to see programming as a form of art rather than just problem solving. During lunch break, Marcus decided to visit the rooftop garden his company had installed the previous year. He had never bothered to go there before, always eating at his desk while working. But now he felt drawn to experience nature with his expanded consciousness. The garden was modest, just a few planters with vegetables and flowers, but, through Zarathus's perception, it became a miracle of organic engineering. Life creating more life, she whispered in his mind. Your planet is covered in these self-replicating systems. My people eliminated such randomness from our worlds long ago, choosing controlled synthetic environments. We called it progress. Marcus touched a tomato plant, feeling the texture of the leaves, the slight vibration of life processes happening at the cellular level. You don't have gardens anymore? We have perfect growing facilities that produce nutritionally optimal foods with maximum efficiency. But we lost something essential. We forgot that inefficiency can be beautiful. That imperfection creates character. A pigeon landed nearby, and Marcus found himself fascinated by the bird's fearless curiosity. It hopped closer, cocking its head to study him with one bright eye. Even your simplest creatures display such courage, Zarathus observed. This small being sees a creature hundreds of times its size and approaches anyway, hoping for food, willing to trust. When did my people stop taking such chances? Marcus pulled out his phone and took a photo of the pigeon. As he looked at the image on the screen, he felt Zarathus react with surprise. You capture light and preserve moments in time, she said. But, more than that, you choose which moments matter enough to preserve. This simple act contains profound philosophy about the nature of memory and meaning. It's just a photo, Marcus said mentally, but, even as he said it, he realized it wasn't true. Every photo was a decision about what deserved to be remembered, what moment held enough beauty or significance to save forever. Returning to work, Marcus noticed his interactions with colleagues had changed. He listened more carefully, responded more thoughtfully, picked up on emotional undercurrents he had always missed before. His team members began engaging with him differently, as if sensing that he was somehow more present, more connected. During a meeting about the AI platform, Marcus found himself considering the implications of artificial intelligence from an entirely new perspective. We are creating digital minds, he realized, but are we teaching them to feel, or just to process? Are we making the same mistake Zarathusa's people made? That evening, as Marcus walked home through the city streets, he experienced the urban environment as a living organism. The flow of people became rivers of consciousness, each person carrying their own stories, dreams, fears, and hopes. The buildings weren't just structures but monuments to human ambition and creativity. Even the graffiti on walls transformed into expressions of souls demanding to be heard. Your cities are like ant colonies, Zarathus observed, but with infinite individual variation. Each person chooses their own path while contributing to the larger pattern. It is beautiful chaos. Marcus stopped at a street corner where a musician was playing violin for donations. The melody was simple, perhaps amateur, but through his enhanced perception it became something transcendent. He felt the musicians' passion, their vulnerability in performing for strangers, their hope that music could build bridges between isolated souls. He dropped a $20 bill into the musician's case, more than he had ever given to street performers before. The young woman looked up and smiled, and, in that moment Marcus felt a connection that rippled through both his consciousness and Zarathusa's. That, the Empress said softly, is what we have been searching for across the galaxy. That moment when one soul reaches out to another with no expectation of return, offering kindness simply because kindness exists. We had evolved beyond such gestures, thinking them inefficient. We were wrong. As Marcus continued walking, he became aware that their connection was deepening. He was changing Zarathus just as much as she was changing him. Through his human experiences, she was remembering emotions her species had abandoned. Through her cosmic perspective, he was learning to see the profound in the mundane. What happens to your empire now? Marcus asked as he entered his apartment building. Change, Zarathus replied. Through our bond, I am sharing these new understandings with my people. Some resist, clinging to our old ways of perfect logic and controlled existence. But others are curious. They want to remember how to feel wonder, how to take beautiful risks, how to love imperfectly but completely. Marcus made dinner, a simple pasta dish, but found himself paying attention to every step of the process. The transformation of raw ingredients into nourishment became a form of alchemy, a daily miracle he had performed thousands of times without truly noticing. Tomorrow, Zarathus said as he prepared for sleep, I will share our connection with my daughter, Kathara. She leads a faction of our people who believe we should return to emotional existence, but they lack the knowledge of how to begin. Through you, she will learn. Marcus felt a moment of apprehension. Will I be connected to her too? Not directly. But your influence will spread through my bloodline, and eventually throughout my empire. You are teaching us to be alive again, Marcus Chen. You are showing us that perfection is not the goal of existence. Growth is. Connection is. Love is. As Marcus drifted toward sleep, he marveled at how much his world had expanded in just one day. He was still the same person, living the same life, but everything had meaning now. Every interaction, every sensation, every choice mattered because it was shared, because it was teaching an ancient civilization to rediscover its soul. Tomorrow would bring new experiences, new lessons, new opportunities to bridge the gap between human emotion and cosmic wisdom. Marcus smiled as sleep claimed him, knowing that somewhere among the stars, an empress was learning to dream human dreams. 3 weeks had passed since Zarathus first entered Marcus's life, and the changes had been remarkable. The shy software engineer who once ate lunch alone at his desk had become someone his coworkers sought out for conversation. His code had evolved into something approaching art, with elegant solutions that impressed even senior developers. But, more importantly, Marcus had learned to see beauty in ordinary moments. Tonight was different, though. As Marcus prepared for bed, he felt a disturbance in his connection with Zarathus. Her mental presence, usually calm and steady, now carried undertones of urgency. Something is happening, she said as he lay down. My daughter approaches Earth. The faction I told you about, those who resist emotional restoration, they follow her. There may be conflict. Marcus sat up in bed, suddenly, alert. Conflict? What kind of conflict? They believe that reconnecting with emotions will make us weak, vulnerable to the chaos that destroyed lesser civilizations. They see our bond as contamination rather than evolution. They come to sever our connection permanently. Through their mental link, Marcus felt Zarathus's deep concern. Not for herself, but for what would happen to her people if they lost this chance to rediscover their humanity. And, beneath that concern, he sensed something else, something that made his heart race with a mixture of terror and amazement. "You love me," he said, not as a question but as a statement of profound realization. The silence that followed stretched across light years before Zarathus replied. "Yes. It is an emotion I thought lost forever to my kind. Through our connection, experiencing life through your perspective, I have learned that love is not weakness. It is the most powerful force in any universe. This is why some of my people fear it so deeply." Outside Marcus's window, the night sky began to change. Stars shifted position, new lights appeared where none had been before, and the aurora borealis became visible despite his southern latitude. Ships were arriving, vast and silent as they positioned themselves in Earth's atmosphere. "They are here," Zarathus confirmed. "Both factions. Those who would preserve our connection, and those who would destroy it." Marcus dressed quickly and made his way to the rooftop of his apartment building. Other people were emerging from their homes, pointing at the sky in wonder and fear. The ships were beautiful and terrible, like crystalline cathedrals floating among the clouds. Some pulsed with the warm purple light he had come to associate with Zarathus's energy. Others emanated a cold blue radiance that made his teeth ache. "The blue ones belong to my brother, Vexhan," Zarathus explained. "He leads those who believe emotions are a disease. He has convinced many that our ancient ways of pure logic are the only path to true enlightenment." As Marcus watched, smaller craft began descending from the larger ships. They moved with impossible grace, defying physics as he understood it. People on nearby rooftops were recording everything with their phones, but Marcus knew their technology would struggle to capture the reality of what was happening. A golden light appeared beside him, and Zarathus materialized in her physical form. She looked different now, more solid, more present. Their weeks of connection had strengthened her ability to manifest in his dimension. "I had to come," she said, her voice audible to his ears instead of just his mind. "If we are to face what comes next, I want to experience it with all my senses, as you do." Another figure materialized on the opposite side of the rooftop. This being was taller than Zarathus, with features that seemed carved from ice and starlight. Where she radiated warmth despite her alien nature, he projected cold perfection that made Marcus instinctively step back. "Sister," the figure said in a voice like whined through empty spaces. "You have allowed this contamination to progress too far. The humans' chaotic emotions have corrupted your judgment." "Brother," Zarathus replied, moving protectively closer to Marcus. "His emotions have restored my judgment. Through Marcus, I have remembered what we lost when we abandoned feeling for pure thought." Vexhan studied Marcus with eyes that held no warmth, only analytical assessment. "This creature is a vector of chaos. His species lacks the mental discipline to evolve beyond their primitive emotional responses. They wage wars over feelings, destroy their planet for temporary pleasures, sacrifice logic for irrational attachments." Marcus felt a surge of anger at being discussed like a laboratory specimen, but, before he could speak, Zarathus placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Let me show you what he has taught me, Vexhan," she said, and, suddenly, the air around them shimmered with shared memory. Marcus saw himself through Zarathus's perception over the past 3 weeks. His small acts of kindness, his creative solutions to programming challenges, his growing capacity for wonder and connection. But, more than that, he saw how these experiences had changed her. How learning to feel again had made her more effective as a leader, more innovative as a thinker, more complete as a being. Interesting data, Vexhan admitted, but ultimately irrelevant. Emotions are a luxury our species cannot afford. We have responsibilities that span galaxies. Decisions that affect billions of lives cannot be influenced by irrational attachments. A new voice interrupted their confrontation. Perhaps it is time for our people to learn that responsibility and emotion are not incompatible. A third figure approached, younger than the other two but carrying herself with unmistakable authority. Her appearance blended elements of both siblings, warm like Zarathes but with the sharp intelligence of Vexhan. "Kethera," Zarathes said with obvious relief. "You made it." "Mother's teachings reached me across the void," the younger being replied. "Through your connection with Marcus, I felt echoes of what we have lost. I brought others who believe as I do. We have formed a third faction, those who seek balanced restoration." Vexhan's expression grew colder, if such a thing were possible. "You would risk our empire's stability for the sake of primitive feelings?" "Uncle," Kethera replied with surprising firmness, "I would risk our empire's stagnation for the sake of genuine growth. We have reached the limits of pure logic. Our civilization has not truly evolved in millions of years. We are trapped in perfection, but perfection is death." Marcus found himself in the surreal position of watching three cosmic beings debate the future of galactic civilization on his apartment building's rooftop. Other humans had gathered on nearby buildings, witnessing something that would change their understanding of the universe forever. "The human's influence must end," Vexhan declared, and raised his hand. Energy began to gather around his fingers, cold and sharp as winter starlight. "I will sever the connection and purge the emotional contamination from our bloodline." "No," Zarathes said, stepping directly between Vexhan and Marcus. "If you destroy our bond, you destroy the greatest discovery our people have made in eons. Marcus has shown us that strength and vulnerability can coexist, that logic and emotion can enhance each other rather than conflict." The energy in Vexhan's hand intensified, and Marcus could feel it pulling at something deep inside his chest. The connection that had become so precious to him began to strain and fray. "Wait," Marcus said, his voice somehow carrying despite the cosmic forces at play. All three beings turned to look at him, and he realized that the fate of entire civilizations might depend on what he said next. "You're both wrong," he continued, his heart pounding but his voice steady. "Vexhan, you think emotions make us weak, but they're what drive us to become stronger. Every great human achievement came from someone who felt passionately about something. Love, anger, hope, even fear can motivate incredible growth." He turned to address Zarathes and Kethera. "And you think emotions are automatically good, but they're not. Humans do terrible things because of unchecked feelings. The key is balance. Logic without emotion is cold and stagnant. Emotion without logic is dangerous and destructive. You need both." Marcus felt the connection between himself and Zarathes pulse with new energy as his words resonated through their bond. "Your people didn't evolve beyond emotions. You amputated part of yourselves. Real evolution would be learning to integrate both aspects of consciousness, not choosing one over the other." For a long moment, the three cosmic beings stood in silence, processing his words. Then, Kethera began to smile. "The human speaks wisdom beyond his years," she said. "This is exactly what my faction believes. Not the abandonment of logic for emotion, or emotion for logic, but the marriage of both into something greater than either alone." Vexhan's energy weapon wavered, his certainty shaken by Marcus's perspective. "Integration," he mused. "A synthesis rather than a choice between opposites. Your people could become something unprecedented in the universe," Marcus continued, sensing an opening. "Beings who combine cosmic wisdom with emotional depth, who make decisions based on both perfect logic and genuine compassion. Imagine what you could accomplish." Slowly, Vexhan lowered his hand and the cold energy dissipated. "The human's proposal has merit," he admitted reluctantly. "Perhaps a controlled experiment would be logical." Zarathes felt relief and triumph through their bond, but also something deeper. The love between them had grown beyond mere connection into true partnership. They were teaching each other to be more than either could become alone. "Then, it is decided," Kethera announced. "The three factions will unite under a new philosophy. We will learn to blend logic and emotion, structure and chaos, perfection and growth. Marcus Chen, you have become the teacher of a galactic empire. As the ships in the sky began to glow with new colors, neither purely warm nor cold but, somehow both, Marcus realized his life had taken another impossible turn. He was no longer just a bridge between human and alien consciousness. He had become an architect of a new form of existence that might spread across the universe. "What happens now?" he asked Zarathes as the cosmic fleet prepared to depart. "Now we begin the greatest experiment in the history of consciousness," she replied, her mental voice filled with love and anticipation. "And you, my dearest Marcus, will help guide us every step of the way." The ships vanished as quietly as they had arrived, but Marcus knew this was not goodbye. His connection with Zarathes had become permanent, evolving into something that would reshape both their species. He was no longer a lonely software engineer from Manhattan. He was a catalyst for the next stage of cosmic evolution. As Marcus returned to his apartment and prepared for sleep, he smiled at the thought that somewhere among the stars, an entire civilization was learning to dream. And, in those dreams, logic and emotion danced together, creating new forms of beauty that the universe had never seen before. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and new opportunities to bridge the gap between thinking and feeling. Marcus closed his eyes, no longer slumbering alone, but, as part of a cosmic family learning to be whole again.